Okay, good morning. This is Karis Moon, and I am reading for Reiner's class with Miss Hatton Ellis and Indy's class with Miss Kearns. And so this is called The Curious Garden. And if you can guess which book I have underneath there, that you're a winner. I don't know what you'd win, but I think that's something you can guess and see if you can get it. Okay, so this is by Peter Brown. Okay. There was once a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days while everyone stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. It was on such a morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore, there was only one thing for a curious boy to do. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lowly patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last things he expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up further and further down the tracks and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. And there he is, the big patch of flowers. That's a smokestack up there from a factory. And there he is on the railway where a train used to run through. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city garden. And for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. He was looking up. He's like, oh, wants to be there. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months in the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardener gear over to the railway. Winter had taken a toll on the garden. Oh, I need to read better. Ugh. But thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon woke from their winter sleep. Ooh, and he's singing to him. Look at that. It's cute. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring, it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up further and further from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old forgotten things. And a few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. But the most surprising thing that popped up were all the new gardeners. Look, there's a ton of them. And the city looks better and better. We even got a little scarecrow. And got little wheat fields and stuff. And the city is just growing and flourishing with greenery. So it looks nice. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed, but of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. See, he's got a wife and kids now. I'm pretty happy. And the whole city looks different, doesn't it? So if we go from here to the very beginning of the book, here, they will show you the contrast between one and the other. This is the way the city first looked, and this is the way the city turned out. It's a beautiful place that you want to live. So, thank you for reading with me.